we are lucky enough to have on two of the brain trust of the Las Vegas Golden Knights. That's what that you guys are officially brain trust now. We are joined now by Stephanie Rogers, VP of Marketing for the Golden Knights, and Darlene Navarro, who is the VP of HR for the Golden Knights. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
First of all, I think in Vegas, the number one thing is that we look at an expansion franchise going to a place that is a city everybody in the country knows and everybody has been to. Most adults have been to Vegas. It's not like when the Sonics moved to Oklahoma City and everybody's like, nobody wants to go there. Vegas was one that you were the first there. And as the VP of Marketing, Stephanie, I guess, what was from the ground and building up to where they are now, building a fan base in such a short order that is so passionate?
Yeah, well, I was not lucky enough to be there on day one, but have been lucky enough to see the fruits of all the labor from day one. And, I think it's funny and it's ironic. You have a city that has been craving professional sports. We were the very first professional sports team, right? They're asking for it for decades. And then they get an ice hockey team in a city that's regularly above 100 degrees for weeks and months on end, right? So I think there was a mountain of doubt, to be honest with you. A lot of people were like, this is never going to work. If you look back at all the clips and everything else, it's like hockey in the desert. This is crazy. It was just a mountain of doubt is kind of how we refer to it. But our owner was very adamant, very persistent, and he wanted to provide the absolute best product possible for the locals. We're very proud of our relationship with the local fan base there in Vegas. Vegas is an incredible town. I mean, everybody knows the world famous Strip, right? There's 40, 50 million tourists a year that come through there, but outside of that street, there is such a vibrant community. I mean, there's massive amounts of culture. It's a very diverse population. We got parks, we have arts, we have literally everything that you can imagine. So for us, it was really just ingratiating ourselves with the community by showing up consistently and genuinely showing up, right? So we're not just writing a check to the charity. We're literally there, helping out, doing whatever. We're not just inviting fans to the game. We're standing, our team president stands at the front doors and greets people as they walk in. People know who we are. We're out there in the community, and I think that's been part of it. And, we had that miraculous first year where we went all the way to the Cup final, and so you have an entire city of people that don't know anything about the sport of hockey that instantly learn it. And the way I kind of describe it is that we kind of expedited that generational fandom, right? And so now it's really cool to see how that comes to life. I can't believe we're entering our 8th season here. So there's literally a whole set of children that have never known the city without professional sports, let alone not known it without hockey. So really special, really cool relationship that the brand has with the population there in Las Vegas and the fans and the community. And it's Darlene and I's job to make sure that we protect and cultivate that every day.
One of the weirder things I've seen in Las Vegas, particularly as it pertains to the fan base, is two things as it pertains to marketing with the Knights, which you guys have crushed. I go down there every year for NBA Summer League, and every car that I get into has a Vegas Golden Knights personalized license plate. And in a city that is 110 degrees, people are wearing Golden Knights sweaters. How on earth did those two things become synonymous with Las Vegas?
Yeah, well, I'll talk about the sweaters, but I'll hand it to Darlene to talk about the license plates, because it's a really cool story there. It's something that our team president absolutely loves to talk to us about every day. Yeah, but the sweaters, they're so shiny and gold, right? They're meant to exude Vegas, but they're hockey. They're the perfect combination of sport and Las Vegas. They're innovative. They're very first jerseys in professional sports, sweaters in professional sports that include that gold thread and that gold technology. So for us, our brand is very, very innovative. Our owner actually challenged us to be the most entertaining product on the Strip, which, I mean, talk about a high bar, right? High expectations. So people just love wearing it because it's so synonymous with the fandom, and people wear it with pride. And it's so funny, on game days, non-game days, like you said, for Summer League, if anybody's going out, I mean, you're hard pressed to go a few blocks without seeing somebody in one of those sweaters, which is really cool. And then
yeah, we talk about the license plates. I mean, that is tied to our foundation. So when we think about the Vegas Golden Knights, and that's how we're out in the community. So when those fans that don't want to wear their sweaters, they're representing right on their cars, and it goes right back into the community. So
now, Darlene, with the fan engagement, the being the first ones there, that was huge, and just getting the locals on board. But what does community engagement look like when the fan base is so big now? Has the kind of mission changed in the way you navigate those roads of community engagement since the fan base has blown up and become so passionate to where, I mean, it's not like you don't have to work for it anymore, but it is almost like it's all come to you guys so quickly.
Yeah, it definitely has. You know, if you actually look at how much has gone back to the community, I think since its inception of our team, I think we have already put in like $10 million back into the community. It's a little bit easier now because the community is already behind us, and we also want to make sure that we're working with the players to see what's their passion too about how they're going to actually go back. I think just like a few weeks ago, one of our players, Jack Eichel, I'm sure a lot of people know Jack Eichel, but he's actually one that's out on the ice, truly actually, meeting with all of our future hockey players. So it's pretty awesome.
Now, how hard is it, because you guys have a mission and it's community and giving back to the community, but the charitable contributions from players, when you have players coming from all over the world, are you guys like multinational in the money that you're giving charitable contributions to, or is it more just Vegas centric?
Yeah, we really try to focus on the community in Vegas and Las Vegas DMA. Certainly, we're willing to support any players if they have a special initiative that's close to their heart around the world. We are multinational for sure. Yeah. That's kind of the sport of hockey, but we try to pump as much of the money back into the community as possible. And, one thing just to Darlene's point about the players, and they all have their own purpose and mission and charitable organizations. So Golden Knights, the Vegas Golden Knights, one of the things that it's based off of is the epitome of the warrior class. The Knight is the epitome of the warrior class. It's all based around service, right? It's about protecting the unprotected, and it's about no ego and doing literally whatever it takes to support those around you that may need the help, may need the helping hand. And our owner really challenges us and encourages us to have a no ego approach. And we have this inscription in our jerseys that we'll talk about a little bit later too: always advance, never retreat. And that's the way we see everything that we do, not only fandom, not only on the ice, but certainly within the community as well.
What have kind of been the unique challenges and opportunities of being not only in Las Vegas, which has its own set of challenges, but being so successful out of the gate? Because the Knights have been around the world the most successful expansion franchise in professional sports. So that's a different bar and a different level that you kind of have to not deal with, but it does present its own unique circumstances.
Yeah, I think, as a lifelong sports fan and experiencing many disappointments in my lifetime through my Iowa Hawkeyes, who I love dearly, the fan base is really new. And not that they didn't follow sports before, but the idea of disappointment or players getting traded or things like that is very new, right? And especially when you go back to that fandom and that community connection, like, people really do feel an ownership of our group, and we want that. Like, we absolutely want that, but it makes it a lot harder when you don't qualify for the playoffs, or you early exit, or you have a bad stretch of games or something like that. It does get a little bit difficult. You trade a favorite player, which happens in every single franchise, right? And we're not, immune to that. And so for us, it's continuing to educate, like, hey, we promise, like, we're trying to make the right decisions for the organization, for your fandom. But I think the newness of the fandom and the level of passion probably makes some of those moves sting a little bit more.
Being first was big for the Knights. Being the first in Vegas, but also being an expansion franchise, kind of led to people having that connection of this is ours. What was it like, though, when you have the Raiders move into town, and then you're having the A's trying to move into town, and how does that affect kind of how you guys approach marketing in an area where it's now way more competitive over the last 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, I think the best way to think about it is, we're really excited that Vegas has become a sports and entertainment capital of the world. We feel very proud of our part in that. But we have to stay focused on ourselves. Like, the second that you start looking sideways and start trying to keep up with the Joneses is the second that you really lose focus of your actual mission and your goal. And so for us, it's like never taking for granted the local fan base or the organizations or the companies that are in market that are already deep in our ecosystem or kind of within our business, if you will. And so, yeah, certainly that's competition, but, I would argue that we're in one of the most competitive markets in the entire world anyways. And, now there's more sports competition, but our environment is pretty unique. Our game day experience is pretty unique, and there's direct flights from Portland, so hopefully we'll see you guys there. So, we're just focused on ourselves and continuing to keep that mentality of always advance and delivering the product that we know we can.
Darlene, a question for you specifically, because HR in Las Vegas seems like that was
Sin City and
I mean,
HR, they don't really go together well.
As a Raiders fan, there's been some issues that have popped up there. What is it like? What are again, I guess, the challenges and opportunities of having to exist in that vein? Because the nightlife, the hours, the availability, the transgressions that are there for you are not quite as prevalent in a place perhaps like Portland. So what are the kind of things that you guys have to stay on top of maybe a little bit more than you would in other traditional smaller markets?
Oh, tricky question. I guess I'll be very careful about what I'm going to be sharing. But
HR hat has come on.
Yes, it as instantly as soon as you said that, it is definitely very difficult to kind of navigate that. But I think that's probably how myself I've grown kind of in HR, right? Because I have to look at it through a different lens. Because I mean, if you were to ask, when I started in HR, I would have never thought that I would be drinking or having a mimosa just like how we were today, or that type of stuff. And there's definitely like a lot that goes around, and you talked about it, like about the Raiders. I mean, those are the things that we want to make sure that doesn't happen, and that's why it's really, really important to have the right representation within the organization. So we drive that through our leadership. So
the population, everybody knows Vegas, but the population isn't huge in Las Vegas. A lot of people on the outside say oversaturation of sports might be something that is real in that town. What is the conversations that you guys have within the organization about, all right, is there going to be an oversaturation if too many teams start coming? Because it's not just the A's, but the NBA is talking about expansion, and they're like, yep, Vegas and Seattle, that's it. Is oversaturation a concern?
Oh, I definitely can say that. I guess like some internal conversations that we always seem to ask ourselves is like, how do we keep ourselves relevant? And I know that's probably more on the marketing side of things. I have to think about it from a people perspective, right? Because when we were like the first team, just trying to get people through the door, I mean, people were literally running through their door, banging on our door to actually work with our organization. Not saying that they're still not doing that, but now we have a whole lot of competition out there, especially if we're bringing out all of the other professional leagues out there. So I'll give it to Stephanie about the marketing perspective.
Yeah, I think oversaturation is a totally fair question, right? And I mean, it comes down to like what you want your product to be able to drive, right? I mean, the A's, Major League Baseball, they have 88 home games a season, right? Like we have 40. Basketball, the Vegas Aces, like they're world champions back to back. They sit an 18,000 seat arena. So for sure. But I think our perspective is we're just going to assume that literally every single major sports league and property and everything else is going to come into the city. We just have to assume that. We can't sit here and play the game of like, will they, won't they, are they going to, what's the year? We just have to assume it's going to happen. And again, like stay focused on our own mission and to Darlene's point, stay relevant in all the ways that make a lot of sense. But like the Australian Rugby League, they had games this year. Their actual season had games this year at Allegiant Stadium, and there was like 50,000 people there that half of them flew in from outside, from New Zealand and Australia and everywhere else. So that's going to continue to happen. There's going to be massive soccer matches there. There's going to be all sorts of other things there. And so our assumption is that it's going to happen, and we just gotta stay focused on our own mission.
Is Las Vegas pushing for an outdoor classic anytime, or?
I think, keep me honest here on this one. I'm sure somebody will call in and correct me. I think they had an outdoor game in Vegas a long time ago. Yeah. Oh, in Reno. Okay. It's hey, it does get cold.
Yeah, that's right.
It does get cold in Vegas. Not quite probably cold enough for that, but it does get cold there.
Yeah, ice on the strip would be a hell of a thing.
Hey, look, they did F1. I mean, like, figure something out.
You could do it. I think being first with the oversaturation, being first is huge in that regard, and you guys have had the roots are down now in Las Vegas. It's been really cool to see. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to come here to Portland for PDXYZ and take a few minutes for us. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
There you are, Darlene Navarro, the VP of HR for the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and Stephanie Rogers, the VP of Marketing for the Knights as well.